Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to the special edition of the Rama Temple Sunday program, albeit in a very different situation and different circumstances. As we know, the world is struggling to deal with a global pandemic, COVID-19 virus threat that's facing everyone in the world that we are all trying to deal with. So here at Radha Temple, we have adopted various precautionary measures to safeguard all the devotees, all of the communities, and to also hopefully educate the world in general as to the seriousness of the situation, and try and inspire them to be very safe, very protected, and also to somehow go much deeper in their Krishna consciousness, to find shelter in their Krishna consciousness. So here at the Radha Temple, you would have most probably received the somewhat uninspiring, in some way discouraging notice a few hours ago that as of this evening, the temple will be closed to the public and the devotees, the broader community of devotees, simply for the sake of everyone's safety, and to try and work with the government authorities, health department authorities, to try and curb this very rapidly increasing contraction of the COVID-19. So we closed the temple. This will be sort of a system that we will be following. There won't be anyone visiting the temple, but we will still be continuing very inspiring programs based here at the temple that will be streamed live. Many hundreds, if not thousands of persons watching online at the same time. By Krishna's grace, we're very fortunate here at the Radha Temple that for who knows the indefinite future, however long that may be, we have based at the Radha Temple giving us here at the temple and the greater community connected to the temple shelter in the form of His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Maharaj. Kanana Swami Maharaj. And Govinda Swami Maharaj.
Haribo.
So by Krishna's grace, we must have done something right. So by Krishna's grace, we have their association and their shelter and their guidance as they help us along this path. How to still maintain Krishna conscious enthusiasm, Krishna conscious spirit through all of this. One thing we were I'm presenting this program, it's only because a very inspirational temple president is here to be with Chaitanya, is indisposed and recovering in hospital. I also request all of you here today at the temple and watching online, please have him in your prayers so he can also very swiftly recover and again come and take leadership of our temple. He is involved, but he also needs some time to recover. So yeah, without further ado, we'd like to hand over to the Maharaj to please guide us and present the messages today. So now we have His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Maharaj address us. Shiva Prabhupada ki
Jai. Jai. Jai.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gaura Bhakti Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo.
Hare Krishna. Yes, well, we've been through a few extreme situations in Srila Prabhupada's scholar over the years. The first one I experienced really was, actually I forget even what year it was, but maybe 75, something like that, when the police, a lot of police, with one or at least one, maybe two helicopters, arrived at our main temple outside Frankfurt in Germany, because the devotees, some devotees was suspected of raising money by illegal means. And it was, they went on the altar with their big boots on and were looking under things and threw things on the altar. What to speak of around the other buildings. And we were in it, of course. But the whole movement in Germany stopped for a while. And the devotees didn't know what to do. And our whole movement in England sort of stopped. And we didn't, also it was in the newspapers, it was on the front pages of the main newspapers in England. So things became a little paralyzed. Not for a long time, actually, but just a few weeks. And gradually, at least in England, the devotees started venturing out on Sankirtan again, distributing books. And they found that even though they've been on the front pages of many newspapers, the people have very short memories. And things just took off again. It was a crisis, although short-lived, just a couple of weeks. Then, of course, another crisis that was really a crisis, it was a big thing, was when Srila Prabhupada left this world. I was at Kanana, and certainly England, but actually pretty much around the whole world, the whole Irish movement came to a stop. Yes, deity worship was going on, but nothing more than that. And again, it didn't last long. The devotees sort of revived their spirits again, and maybe within a week or two, so many devotees were back out on distribution like that. But certainly for a little while, what an impact it had on the devotee community is just amazing. Completely amazing. And this is related at least. Here we are. And at least according to how we had Sunday programs, going back what, a year or a couple of years, whatever it was, when we had the programs in the later part of the day, the later afternoon and into the early evening. Who would believe that this Sunday today with this? It's amazing. But here we are on Sunday. So these are very extraordinary times. Very extraordinary times. And the senior devotees have really tried their best to discuss things very carefully, in detail, and really try to understand, in terms of Srila Rama's teachings, what is the best thing to do? Is the best thing to do just to say, well, we are transcendental, we are not these bodies, so hurry ball, see you out on book distribution, door to door, see you out in the center of the city on Kadamba. The devotees decided that this was not the right approach. And in fact, personally, I feel convinced that if we did do that, we would definitely lose some of our devotees. Not just in terms of people drifting back into material life, but some devotees would die, and maybe quite a number. So it was a very difficult decision, very extraordinary decision. We've never really had to make a decision of this sort before, but still the decision was made, and personally I feel strongly, in fact, I don't just feel strongly, but it's definitely the right decision. And as all of this has been developing, and coming to this point, there's been discussion about what to do. What are we going to do? How are we going to carry on the preaching work? And I think that many of you are aware, maybe all of you are aware, that we've been having internet programs the last few nights. This morning I had an internet japa program just over by Rama, and I think I can report to you that probably, in a certain sense, it may have been the biggest japa program we've had in the temple room here since I don't know when. There were a lot of devotees there. Yeah. You know, we on Japas in days like that, Govinda recently, for a while, people are here for morality, and gradually they trickle away. And by the time the deity greeting comes, well, I don't know, maybe there's 50 people, yes. Well, we had more than 50 people at the time of the deity greeting, and right through the japa time, chanting very seriously. And frankly, for me, I can report back to all of you, for me, it was just about the best japa session I've had, maybe ever, but definitely for quite some time. And we've been doing these evening classes. I think last night there were 3. And we're going to be continuing basically like this, as long as it takes, until Krishna sees fit to remove this virus and send it back to where it came from. Or I don't know, just send it away. But, you know, if we keep doing these preaching programs in the evening, like the 3 of us, and, you know, we're not the only ones here who are able to do a little preaching, there's certainly qualified devotees here, then we can do much more preaching, in a sense, than we normally do. On any given evening, how many people do we preach to? Maybe we go to another hutta. Well, of course, another huttas are there. Some few hundred devotees, I'm not sure how many, but I think 400 perhaps. number or more. So, and we can do this every night. We have a couple of numbers every night, might be maximum 100 people. But we could preach to hundreds of people every night through this internet preaching. And this is just the beginning. Extraordinary situations give rise to creative thinking. Because who wants to just lie down and just sleep it off? It's just too boring. We've got to do some things, and we've got to think what to do. And like I said, we're just starting. We're just starting. And as different inspirations and ideas come up, how to preach under the current very special and unusual was just really nice. It was just fantastic, actually. So it's a challenge, but it's also a very positive thing. As one devotee sort of, you could almost say, criticize the devotees for preaching and getting so many people involved and so many people involved. But many of those people who became involved didn't become very serious. So Srila Prabhupada made, I think it's quite famous, he coined a fairly famous little phrase now, that from time to time we have to boil the milk. Because when we boil the milk, it becomes thicker and richer. And of course that means that we have to sometimes, even though we love preaching and going out and meeting people and dealing with people and trying to inspire people, but sometimes we need to boil the milk. We need to work on ourselves, first of all. And we need to work on our community. Otherwise, things can become weak and sort of a little insipid. So that's the way I see this whole event. On the positive side, I see it like that there are wonderful opportunities, and I'm sure devotees are going to come up with many more ideas on how we can be Krishna conscious despite the circumstances, and how we can preach Krishna consciousness more and better despite the circumstances, and how we can build our own Krishna consciousness more despite the circumstances. So that's my perspective. That's my perspective. Just like I've mentioned so many times, I'm sure many of you know the story off by heart, how I got locked up in jail in London from Friday afternoon till Monday morning. And my initial thought was, oh, Krishna, come on. What now? What is this? But it was such a wonderful opportunity. I read the whole 6th canto, and it was nectar. So when I walked out, in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way, the thought read something else. Yeah. So, Srila Thakur said, it was maybe not quite exactly the same idea, but he said, out of failure, success can come. And failure can be a stepping stone for success. I'm not implying that any of you or even all of us have really been failing, that the material world is failing. It's really failing. What a shocker. So let's see how we can use the failure of material life for the development of Krishna consciousness on a personal level and on a collective level. Personally, I feel convinced Prabhupada would think like that. I'm sure Prabhupada wouldn't go into some sort of, anxiety state. Oh gosh, what are we going to do? Prabhupada, I'm sure, would be very cool and think in these types of terms. So that's my perspective. I've already been locked down pretty much for a couple of days. I don't let anyone come to my room except Sachi Kadamba and one, two others, a couple of others. I'm an active user of this, this special alcohol-based cleanser. So, let's look on the bright side. Avoid the possibility, as much as humanly possible, of getting implicated in this horrible disease. And on the other side, on the other hand, let's see how we can work to develop our Krishna consciousness and the movement under these circumstances. Srila Prabhupada. Who's next?
Bhakti Caitanya Maharaj gave us a practical orientation of how we can position ourselves in this current situation, and in an intelligent manner, taking all precaution, just as we would in a big storm, right? And wait for the wind to settle down a little bit. When trees start flying, usually one stays indoors. When viruses roam around, you can also withdraw for a while. And we will see how this matter will play out from the information we received. It could be a while. It could be a year. It would be an interesting year. With ups and downs, with times of responding to the practical situation, I thought, let me just speak something from a transcendental perspective, because after all, that is our shelter. I was thinking of the verse of Srila Swami in the Bhakti where he says, Ihaya Syadare Nasi Kanana Manasakura Nikila Swabhya Susu Jivan Mukha Uta Suchite. And Srila Swami is describing that in this world, when one is engaged in devotional service, and one engages all his work, or his mind, his body in the service of the Lord, that at that stage one becomes liberated. One becomes a jivan mukta, one becomes liberated from the influence of the material world. Well, certainly that is the place where we find not only our inspiration, but that is the place where Vaishnavas reside on the transcendental plane. Although we are in this physical world, in material bodies, we are not these material bodies, and the material world is in a constant flux, a constant flow of events that always change. That is the nature of the material energy. Just like in the morning, when we look in the mirror and brush the teeth, there is that old familiar face, morning Vincent. Not the same face, different. If you would have taken a picture from yesterday and we look at the picture of today, we can start that whole puzzle, find the differences between the pictures. Because everything material is always changing. It is never constant. So that is the nature of the material world. Our bodies are changing slowly, but definitely over time. Circumstances are changing over time. But Krishna's reality is untouched by all those things. Krishna is always in the spiritual world. When Krishna comes to this material world, then Krishna, it said, brings the spiritual world with him, and Krishna still resides in the spiritual world. And the devotees are also with Krishna in that spiritual reality, as long as we are engaged in devotional service. It is there where we are untouchable. It is there where we are beyond fear. If any Vaishnava is abhayam, is beyond fear, how is it possible when this world is full of dangers? When there is danger at every step, how is it possible to be fearless? It is only possible to be fearless when we are appreciating that we don't have a real relationship with the temporary material energy. That actually the soul doesn't have a real relationship with the material body. The soul doesn't have a real relationship with the material world and all these things. Rather, the soul is eternal and is ever fresh. The soul has the same qualities as Krishna. It is ever fresh, ever young, not affected by time or not affected by any of the influences of the three modes of material nature. So, grounding ourselves, at least in this understanding philosophically, we find peace of mind. Of course, the great liberated associates of the Lord, they were so transcendental, they were actually living in the spiritual world. Bodhisattva devotees of the Supreme Lord, and they reside with the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. And even although they are here in the material world, internally they're actually there. And the more one is contemplating on that eternal aspect, the more we come to the reality of life. In this way, we are taking shelter. Maybe we are not yet on that platform of the eternal associates of the Lord who don't care whether they live or die or simply always fixed at Krishna's lotus feet, and who just simply leave it up to Krishna. You see the example of Prahlad Maharaj. One could say that Prahlad Maharaj certainly had complicated circumstances. One could say that it was maybe at certain points even more acute than our current situation. For example, when they were boiling in hot oil, I would say that was getting quite acute. There was no more hand washing or anything. It was just boiling in the oil. Or when the Rakshasas came with great lances and so on and were storming at him, that was also quite gruesome, to say the least. When Prahlad was in a pit of snakes, Prahlad was by no means disturbed, not even in his mind. That's not easy. If I would be thrown in a pit of snakes, I would be chanting, and very fast also, out of great fear. But Prahlad was totally calm, because Prahlad was always living in that relationship with the Supreme Lord. And Prahlad was by no means affected by the external circumstances, not even in his consciousness. Not only was Prahlad protected externally, but Prahlad was internally totally calm and peaceful and totally absorbed in the eternal situation. And Hiranyakasipu was getting agitated. Where are you getting your power? Totally calm and peaceful. Prahlad said, from the same source as where you are getting yours from. Lord Vishnu. Then, of course, corn and all these things. And Prahlad remained equipoised. So yes, these are opportunities for us to take shelter. We are not liberated Bodhisattva devotees. We are simply sadhakas. We are simply practicing, trying to cultivate our Krishna consciousness. And that's fine. We are not expected to be always internally free from fear. There may be, at times, there may be fear, but still, we know our shelter is with Krishna. And we know that actually there's no cause for anxiety. Because everything is in Krishna's hands, no matter what will happen. Yes, the material bodies, they are prone to judgment and chijaya, to birth, death, old age, and disease. Those things are there with us always. That is the nature of being in mind. So death will come one day. That is certain. When it will come, who knows? But if we could just remind ourselves and cultivate and deeply cultivate the understanding that actually there is nothing to worry. Because even when death will come, death will not be a great dangerous situation. In never steps on the head of death and uses death as a stepping stone to step into the plane. And so, in this way, death was totally favorable for Jude Maharaj. So the Prabhupada also says, death is when we go to sleep and we wake up in the spiritual world. So in this way, we can pray, oh Krishna, please protect us, please protect us, please protect all the devotees, please protect this movement, oh Lord Shiva, please protect. Yes, that is good. But the Lord may or may not protect the material body, because the material bodies are all limited by their time. There's only a limited number of births. But the Supreme Lord will always protect the spirit soul. The soul of the devotee is always protected. Neha Vikrama Nasasti Patyavari Chati Slokamam Yastarmashitai Vimam. So we know that whatever benefit we have accrued from whatever devotional service will never be lost. And in this way, we can be delivered from the most dangerous type of fear. Krishna will protect us. So in this way, I'm contemplating fearlessness at this time. And yes, the governments are predicting that this thing may easily go on for a year, that it will have its waves, that there will be periods when it relaxes a bit and it starts again and all these things. So we are fastening our seatbelts, and but we cannot always remain fastened. We also need to do our business. Just as the governments are not only worried about the health of the people, but they are also worried about the economy, about their business, about the money, about food. And in the same way, we are also taking care of our health, but we are also worried about pushing on our business to somehow or other flood this entire world with Krishna consciousness. So how all that will unfold within this year, I don't know. I can think about it. I can see how maybe at one point food for life will become relevant. I can see how our farms will become relevant. I can see how Kirtan at one point maybe a shelter for many people in the world. I could see that many people might come and suddenly take up interest in Krishna consciousness, and that they need devotees to guide them. I can see that there is a time for us not to just be strong for ourselves, but also to be strong to share with others what we have received. How? Again, with intelligence. Right? But we will see how the year will unfold. I must say, it's going to be an interesting year. Sure enough, whatever is going to happen, I don't know, but it's not going to be boring, that I can tell you. It's exciting. It's part of Krishna's plan. And I don't know how far-fetched these things will reach. Being a bit of an amateur astrologer, at times like this, I had a quick look. And one of the things, what to do, one of the things that came up next Jupiter moves into Pisces on the 11th of April. Those. So then there will be a period of some relaxation, and then other waves will come. So it said until the end of the year. Another thing it said is that this situation will have a lasting effect. It will have a lasting impact in the world and bring about a lasting change. I don't know if that is really true. And one more prediction, if I may share with you. When I was recently in December, I was also in a quarantine in an Ayurvedic hospital where they locked me up for 1 week in a room as part of the treatment. So it was I had a taste of what it would be like sitting there, and there was no electronics around. I cheated a little bit what to do. And then there was a full eclipse, a full solar eclipse. So you know that's not an auspicious sign. And so again, I thought, okay, let me check on this one. And I looked at the nakshatra again. And what came out was that materially, this will lead to devastating consequences. And spiritually, it will give the world a tremendous boost. Not that I'm basing my faith on astrology. I don't need astrology to see it, because the circumstances themselves are showing that when there is so much duress, naturally, people will take to spiritual life. So from a spiritual point of view, I think our individual Krishna consciousness, the collective Krishna consciousness in the world can grow to a deeper extent in a period like this. And I know that is what Krishna desires. Thank you very much.
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा. I don't have much experience of years living in the calamity, but I found that from the teachings of Bhagavad Maharaj, you get some intuition how to face any calamity. Not only this, the material world is full of calamity comes and goes. Winter season, severe winter season goes, summer comes, rainy season comes and goes, day and night. It is nothing but natural. No one can avoid it. Kanana Maharaj says that Idvanatitham danujam kutumbam Ushannalokayana kalpate vai Yasi aparak vibhinna bhava Panaprapadye vayakam. This material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education, have the propensity to consider this is mine and that is for others. That they are always engaged in the providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life, just like uneducated cats and dogs. They are unable to take spiritual knowledge, instead they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. In human society, there are attempts to educate human beings, but for animal society, there is no such system, nor animals able to be educated. Therefore, animals and unintelligent men are called mudha, or ignorant, bewildered, whereas an educated person is called vidwan. The real vidwan is one who tries to understand his own portion within this material world. For example, when Sanatana Swami submitted the lotus feet of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, his first question was, Ene Amaya Dari Tapatraya. In other words, he wanted to know his constitutional question and why he was suffering from the threefold miseries of intelligence. This is the process of education. It does not ask, who am I, what is the goal of life, but instead follow the same animal propensities as cats and dogs. What is the use of education? Present situation, lockdown down. It should give some everyone, some more time to for introspection. The Padma Purana nicely mentioned the nature of this material life and this body. Dehasti mansal dhiro matat tadatkam jaya sutad sada mamadam muncha Pashan nishan jagadidam chana anga nishtam vairagya raga rasapati. Whether devotees, non-devotees, in the present situation, material world, we are all very much attached to the material life. So everyone, though before we take up to the Krishna consciousness, whatever the first lesson is, we are not this body. Our goal is to go back to Krishna. But still we do so much attachment. The present calamity will give us, whether we like or not, what is going to happen, no one knows it. No one should think that I am safe. No one is safe. At what time this calamity will come, what time I have to leave this body, nobody knows it. How does it happen? So one should be ready for this situation, not only during this type of situation, but all the time one should be ready to do. Pashanisham, Jagadidam Chanatana. The great Shetri people say that every moment one should think that what will happen to me if I die at this moment. What is going to be? What I take with me? Then we don't be in the proper situation. Yes, Prabhupada also said that education, jnana, doesn't mean that only knowledge. We need the vijnana, realized knowledge. The realized knowledge will come only when I think, who am I? If I don't question what is this, who am I, then I'm okay. I'm enjoying this little life. So that enjoy spirit will make us remain in the material world. But unless we have to do Atma Tattva, Parabhavastava Bhuta Jatam Yavana Vignasa Atma. Even form of the life is meant for thinking Atma Tattva, who am I? Like Sanatana Goswami Pad, asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who am I? Coming. Why am I suffering? The suffering is always there. So long as we are playing with material nature will play with us. Lord Krishna also says in some chapter, Manashashtindriyani Pratishtani Karshati. So, playing the material nature, the Kali Yuga, sinful activities are so increasing. People accept, do not accept, doesn't matter, actually right. It is logarithmically, exponentially increasing. The result one has to face. How much killing are going on? Even to the extent mothers are supposed to be protecting the children, and mothers are opting for the abortion. The consequences will be very serious as the time goes on. Note this one calamity, coronavirus, so many viruses. So it is good for this situation giving in the morning to every one of us that one should see. One should see that what is how I can be saved. If you will come, when you think of more Atma Tattva and think that how I can get out of this material existence. So long we want to enjoy the material world, we say that I am happy, there is no problem. I have good family, good children, good money. How long this good will be there? One day when I leave the body, all good will go out. If you don't think that one, the calamity we have. So this present lockdown situation will give more time for introspection and spend more time in steady understanding ourselves and spending the time in the Krishna consciousness. Otherwise the time will go on. In the purport also Srila Prabhupada mentioned that the present education system is just like all education system. Only we study how we can improve our material life, how where can I get more and more nice food, how can I get more a happy life. Even the animals also think in the same. Where can I, how I can get good food, how can I get more, where I can get the food, how can I be happy. The main form of the life is not meant for. Lord Maharaj very clearly mentions that Yathai Pushyasya is no power. The human form of the life is meant for the surrendering to Krishna. Surrendering not by the words alone, but surrendering the manasa vacha, by mind, thought and words both. Then, in fully surrender completely out of the body consciousness, no matter what type of calamity comes, we are devotees will not be affected by the calamity. Understand that material body is temporary. It is not permanent situation, material body. It is not today, one day it will be. No matter how much we take care of this body, we have to leave this body. So when we understand the nature of this material existence, nature of this material world, then we don't have to worry. These things come and go. But we have to take precaution. Krishna never said that, don't take a precaution, I protect you. In the morning somebody sent a WhatsApp message that if we do Harinam Sankirtana alone, we don't have to worry, we can go out and if we do Harinam Sankirtana, very good with precautions. Whatever the precaution one has to take, then depend for the result on Krishna. The result is not in our hands. Efforts is only in hands. Results only given by Krishna, Supreme Lord. So this understanding is very essential. So sitting alone at home, now we can't do much outside also. So sitting alone, one can do thinking how can make my present situation better. The better will come, more we go out of this body consciousness, or we go to the Atma Tattva, Atma Bhuta Sthiti, then we will not be afraid of this. So long as we have attachment to this material body, we will be afraid. Fear comes because of the attachment. And we are detached, there is no fear of anything at all. We all are, I know that I have to die, if not today, tomorrow. But I am attached to this body so much, then I don't want to die. Fear, pain and pleasures. They are there, pain and pleasures are there, but we can't. We are helpless. Both comes, we have to accept it. But we do the attachment, we are free from this attachment, get detachment, then automatically then you don't feel anything. That's why Lord said that get detached. And byproduct of the bhakti, the detachment. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayogita. Janati Asavairagyam Jnanam Yat Ahedvati. As we become more and more Krishna consciousness, the detachment will come without any efforts. That byproduct of the bhakti. So this is the time we must realize how I can make more and more better Krishna consciousness. And we should do introspective. How much time I was utilizing for my Krishna consciousness, how much time I was utilizing to read the path books. So then, then we will not, don't have to afraid it, calamity will come. The death always looks for some excuses. Without excuse, death never will come. Somebody was taking bath, fell down and died. That's the living excuse. Always some excuse. He got the heart attack, accident. These are all the excuses. The death is imminent. No one can stop it. But if you are properly situated, that will come okay, that which is imminent. And the time is there, time factor, nobody can stop for the time factor. So we should be ready for that time factor also and be Krishna conscious. So long as we are attached to this material body, then we will be afraid. So the entire teachings of Prahlad Maharaj is also saying that the 25th verse Lord said that Tushte tatat prakimalabhyam anantamate kim trai guna karadya yesus. Prahlad Maharaj wants to say that, he says that if by our service we please the Supreme Lord, there is nothing a devotee will not get it, and there is nothing a devotee should be afraid of. Why? Because whatever the devotee wants, Krishna will give it, and the desire for getting any material thing automatically vanishes from our mind. When we click on more Krishna consciousness, only desire will be how it can be moved with Krishna, not with any material nature. So this time we can utilize for this type of thinking and Atma Tattva. Parabhavastavad jatam yavan jignasata. Vishwadev Maharaj said that if you don't think of Atma Tattva, he has defeated. The main form of the life is meant only for thinking how to get out of this material existence. Otherwise, the women form of life is also considered to elements to be of life. The 11th canto also nicely mentioned it is. Latha sadullah vividan bhavasam bhavante manusham artadamandatyam api hadhera. The human form of the life is mentioned for Nishreyasaya. The meant for the perfection. The perfection is going back to Supreme Lord. If someone wants to enjoy this materialism, Vishaya Kanisavatasya, the sense enjoyment is always there in any form of the life, not only in one form of the life, but Bhakti devotional service, Krishna consciousness is only in human form of the life. The great fortune that Krishna has given this human form body, we are very fortunate that we are in the Krishna consciousness. And it is only by utilizing this human body in the perform the devotional service in Krishna consciousness, then one can go back to the Supreme Lord. Human body is a means for the going back to body. No one from the upper planetary system except Lord Rama, Lord Shiva, Sun God. Remember, all the demigods have to take this human form of the body, perform devotional service in Krishna consciousness, then only they can go back to spiritual world. Otherwise, no. So how fortunate people we are that we are in this material world. Though material world is full of miseries, still there we are fortunate. Why? Because if we are surrender ourselves to the lotus feet of Radha Radha, and there is every possibility we can go to. And the demigods in heaven planet, they are enjoying, but they cannot go. They curse themselves. How fortunate this human being on this earth planet that performing devotional service, they can go back to spiritual world. How unfortunate we in heaven planet, we got all facilities to enjoy, but we cannot go back. Because the place is meant for enjoying the result of the past activity. They never wanted bhakti. If they wanted bhakti, would have taken birth in all the devotees. But they wanted to enjoy the results of their activity, so they are in heaven planet to enjoy the results. This human form of the body on this planet decides the destiny of the living. If I do the pious activity, I want to enjoy it and go to heaven. If I do the pious activity, I have to suffer, I have to take animal birth, I'll go to hell. If I surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, perform devotional service, I can get liberated going back to spiritual world. The destiny is on this human body. That's why all the living entities in upper planets, they want to take birth and human being on this earth planet. So understanding the fact of the life, we can utilize this time to be more Krishna conscious, study, understanding, doing more japa. And we can, one more we concentrate on the meditation of the Lord, Bodhini, then we will be less attached to the spiritual turbulences and come out. Dev Srila Prabhupada.
A few minutes after I mentioned something about Leader Caitanya Prabhu and another introduction, I thought I should clarify something. Leader Caitanya Prabhu does not have the virus. He's nursing a broken leg in hospital. Just remember that. Also, I thought, Jagannath Prabhu, can you bring the microphone to Kanana? We'd also like to share some very important principle of how we should continue in a practical way as well, being safe and secure, and how Mama should help us with that as well.
Yes, of course, this is a time to be cautious about possible contamination of this virus. We have been receiving information, and the principle is this: the contamination mainly comes from surfaces which are touched by the hands, and then the hands are contaminated. Then the next thing that happens is you touch your face. And that I was watching as I was sitting here. And I was looking, and I, without wanting to find fault in anyone, in particular, it's practically 90% of you all were all over your face, including the smiling ones. Yeah, there were people who would sit with 2 hands like this. Some start rubbing there, some start scratching on the forehead. I was watching and thinking, tie your hands behind your back. It's something like nail biting, you know. It's a difficult habit to overcome when you're a kid. You may fall prey to nail biting for some time. Then sometimes they have to tie the hands down. I think we have to, this is the most difficult thing. This morning I sang a song for someone and it was, I want to scratch my face. It is true that I also want to scratch my face. But this is one of the main sources of catching the virus. I see also a lot of spraying of hands, but then I see people spray their hands and then they touch the doorknob. So it's sort of like you should do it after you've touched the doorknob, not before. Things like that, to figure out when to spray, when we've touched the contaminated surface. It's very nice. We spray at the entrance, then we go in and touch the security pad, then we go up to the gate department, and our hands contaminated again. Like that, we have to not just mechanically wash our hands, spray our hands, but be very careful about what we touch. Some are, instead of hands up, it's hands down. These days. That's a new variety. So I'm telling you, hands down. Keep those hands down. And somehow or other, that will be in our self-interest and in the interest of the community. And otherwise, all my best wishes to all of you.
Thank you. Also, we should also practice what's that term? Social distancing, the phrase coined recently, and it's been found to be the most effective way of dealing with the spread or curbing the spread of this virus. So be mindful when you are in public, you have to go to work or in your homes. Just be conscious of keeping that healthy distance for the protection of your loved ones, protection of your friends and colleagues, and your own protection. This is very, very important. And of course, personal hygiene, washing your hands, what is it, 20 seconds? 21 seconds is also good. But as often as possible. So let us consider these things. And at the same time, while we're doing all these things, we also want to remember Krishna. We also want to remember Krishna through all of it. But we have a responsibility to maintain these bodies, to maintain the safety and security of our loved ones. Please consider these things very, very carefully as well. So thank you all very much. We very much appreciate your attendance in person and online, if you that have attended in person. And we look forward to many, many more programs, at least with the three Maharajas and other senior devotees that will be coming online. We also look forward to the Caitanya coming online in a few days, a week or so, when it's ready. So yeah, we'll look together to come and again chant in another realm of existence, the virtual realm. Of course, our main process is not a vacuum association that is very appreciable. Sometimes it's manifest, Prabhupada said, and sometimes it's not. But we have a wonderful opportunity now to take advantage of Vani and to also dig deep into the lessons that we have learned in Krishna consciousness, become more and more grateful for the darshans of the deities that we have. And of course, the deities, they are absolute. Their darshan, whether it's in a physical presence directly in front of them, or it's over a picture or through the television, it is, in one sense, the same because it is absolute. So try not to feel too discouraged and take advantage of the darshan that will be available throughout the day, and especially during the artis as well. And I appeal to you all. You can probably imagine that due to the lack of visitation to the temple, the contributions to the temple will drastically decrease. And I make a humble please continue your donations, encourage others, and if you can, please extend yourselves as well for the service of Shri Shri Radha Radha. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Alright, we'll conclude with the Kirtan with his volume spent out the Kanana song.
Hare Jai